Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're doing something pretty strategic. We're digging into a collection of notes, discussion questions, and, well, practical frameworks from Chris R. Velasquez's work, Legacy of Multiplication.
Yeah.
Yeah, how every church can ignite a gospel movement. And our mission today really is key for any organization, I think. We're going to pull out the strategic blueprint here, a blueprint that hopefully helps any mission-driven group, whatever sector, shift from that comfortable spot, institutional maintenance, to something more dynamic, movement and reproduction, which sounds challenging.
Oh, it definitely is. And that pivot, it starts with a bit of a necessary gut check. The source material, it just hits you right away with this question. What if the biggest thing holding back expansion or global missions? What if it isn't resources? What if it's just the institution's comfort with keeping things as they are, with maintenance?
That really makes you pause, doesn't it? Because maintenance is safer. It feels safer. You're preserving things, protecting what you have, keeping stakeholders, comfortable.
Exactly. So the core dilemma is right there. Are our systems, our processes, built to keep the local comfort zone intact? Or are they actually designed to expand the mission, even if, that expansion causes a bit of disruption?
Right.
And if we're really serious about reproduction, about multiplication, we need proof. Right? What are the actual measurable results that show an organization is living this out today, not just sort of talking about it as a future legacy?
Which brings us straight into that tricky area, redefining success, but doing it through, measurement, metrics. Let's unpack that idea from the source. This fear of metrics in mission context often being maybe a fear of accountability.
It's a really strong point. Accountability, especially when it's tied to outcomes, it can feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
If you avoid measuring the transformation, let's say, then you don't really have to account for stagnation, do you? And most traditional setups and nonprofits, volunteer groups, ministries, you name it, they measure what's easy.
Inputs, right? Like attendance, budget size, how many events did we run?
Exactly. The easy stuff to count.
Yeah. But hang on, isn't there a danger there? If you try too hard to measure transformation, something relational or spiritual, do you risk just turning it into, another bureaucratic exercise? Does quantifying relationships kind of water them down?
That's a really important tension. You absolutely have to manage that. The idea isn't stop counting, it's start counting what actually reflects the mission.
Okay.
The sources really push us. How might focusing only on those easy surface metrics actually be hiding a deep lack of progress on the core mission? If the historical model talks about measuring fruit, which is pretty profound, right? Growth, impact.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then why do so many organizations kind of shy away from measuring anything beyond basic transactions?
Well, maybe because counting transactions like attendance just tells you who was there. It doesn't tell you if their life changed or if they went on to impact someone else, right?
Precisely. That's the shift. From transactional metrics to transformational ones. And here's the key insight. Tracking relationships and the movement within those relationships, that can show you the real health, spiritual, relational of an organization in ways attendance just can't.
You're looking at the quality of the influence, not just the quantity of people in the room.
You got it.
And thinking about that quality, that depth, it leads right into the challenge from Chapter 3 about pace, speed versus depth. I found that distinction really sharp, mistaking, say, conversion or initial sign-up as the finish line, when it should really be the starting line. That applies everywhere, not just ministry, sales, outreach.
It's a critical distinction, absolutely universal. If your metrics, your rewards, favor speed, quick conversions, fast signups, immediate donations, you're basically incentivizing a shallow approach.
Right, you get numbers that look good short-term but maybe don't mean much.
Yeah.
Vanity metrics.
Vanity metrics, exactly. The source argues for valuing that slower relational process, investment, formation. It means developing patience and actually rewarding the relational work that might take years, honestly, to show real fruit. The focus has to be on cultivating deep commitment.
Okay, so if we need to measure this deeper, slower relational movement, not just surface activity, we need a tool. And that brings us to the core framework they offer, the Connect and Praise scale, the CMP scale.
Yes. And this is where the source kind of reframes what we even think of as organizational data. It suggests data can be, almost a sacred tool.
How so?
It's for strategic decisions, yes, but also for intentional engagement. You're mapping every active relationship in your network, not just to fill a spreadsheet, but to inform, disciplined prayer and focused targeted action.
It sounds almost like a purpose-built CRM, but designed purely for relational health and movement. Can you break down how the CMP scale actually categorizes these connections? It feels like it's got to be more nuanced than just, say, cold, warm, hot leads.
Oh, it is. It's definitely more nuanced. It's a tiered system specifically designed to track that movement towards maturity and ultimately towards reproduction. It breaks engagement into 3 key tracks.
Okay.
First track, presence. This is your foundation. It's all about building bridges based on trust and doing it over time.
So not just showing up once.
Not at all. The real test here is, are you or are your people known for how you show up in the community? Your integrity, reliability, availability, not just for your mission statement. You have to earn that right to be heard through consistent, trustworthy action.
Okay, so if I translate that,
Yeah.
say, for a nonprofit, this is being visible, ethical, helpful in the community, even when there isn't a fundraising campaign happening.
Exactly that, being a known, trusted entity.
Wow.
And the second track is proclamation. This is a crucial pivot point. It's
Right.
moving someone from just being curious or passively involved towards active commitment.
Right.
And critically, the sources stress that effective proclamation isn't about shouting louder, it's actually about listening longer. Yeah. It involves using personal stories, transformation stories as bridges, making the invitation to commit feel relational, compelling, not confrontational.
So it's less about just telling them what you believe or do, and more about showing them how it impacted you and inviting them into that same kind of experience or commitment.
Beautifully put, yes. And then the third track, maturity. This ties right back to that core mission, reproduction. Maturity in this model isn't measured by how much someone knows.
Okay.
It's measured by their capacity for multiplication. How many people do they, in turn, grow? Who do they equip to lead, to influence, to reproduce the mission themselves?
Wow. So the practical goal then, using the CMP scale, is to track relationships very intentionally and strategically, help move people along that path, say from presence to proclamation, and hopefully eventually to maturity, where they become multipliers themselves.
That's precisely it. The scale forces tracking to become an act of intentional stewardship. You're managing relational capital with a very high degree of focus, not just admin.
This whole shift, changing how we measure success, how we track relationships, it obviously requires a huge shift in leadership too. Let's talk about that from chapter 4. Redefining roles.
Yeah.
I think the killer question there is, what's really harder? Starting something new or letting go of what you've already built?
Oh, letting go. Almost always, it's exponentially harder because it triggers what the sources label loss anxiety.
Loss anxiety.
Yeah, and these aren't just small worries. They're deep fears. Fear that, if that key person leaves, the budget collapses. Fear the new thing won't be as good as the original. Maybe even fear of losing your own relevance as a leader. And those anxieties are powerful. They're often what stops leaders from truly releasing their best, most capable people to start new things or take on major roles elsewhere.
But wait a second. If you actually send away your best talent, aren't you deliberately weakening your core team, at least in the short run? How do the sources justify taking that immediate, very real hit?
It ties that practical act, releasing people directly to the leader's fundamental trust. Trust in provision, trust in abundance, trust in the mission itself. The critical self-reflection point is, what do my fears about sending actually reveal about my belief? Do I believe the mission can thrive beyond my direct control? If you hoard your best people, you're essentially building an empire that depends on you, on central control.
Okay.
But if you release them, you're signaling that multiplying the mission is more important than preserving your current structure.
So it fundamentally changes the leader's job description, or at least their definition of success. Am I building followers loyal to my vision, or am I building multipliers of the overall mission?
Exactly that. The leader's role has to shift from planter, maybe, or manager, to coach.
How's coach different?
Well, a manager often focuses on compliance, controlling the outcomes, protecting the existing thing. A coach, in this multiplication context, is laser-focused on intentional release, on deep empowerment. The real aim is equipping others so well that they can actually surpass the original leader's impact.
That mindset, that's the bedrock for what Chapter 5 calls a true sending culture, isn't it? Creating systems that actually encourage people and resources to move out, not systems designed just to keep talent locked in.
Yes. And counterintuitively, when your systems are genuinely geared for sending, the original base often gets stronger.
How does that work?
Well, when you show that kind of faith sending your best out, you tend to create new pipelines, new partnerships. You build a reputation that actually attracts other leaders who want to be part of a dynamic movement, not a static museum. It shifts the whole identity from being consumers to being contributors.
This framework is powerful, but let's get really practical. We need to move to the tactical stuff. Let's dive into those actionable takeaways from the workbook sections, the things you, the listener, could actually start doing this week.
Okay, first up is the organizational health check. This uses that Acts 1.8 model, basically mapping your outreach across 4 spheres. You've got Jerusalem, your immediate local community.
Right, home base.
Then Judea, that's regional, nearby areas. Then Samaria, think cross-cultural, or maybe communities you don't naturally engage with. And finally, ends of the earth, global or very distant engagement.
So you audit your current efforts. Where's your time going?
Yeah.
Money, your relational energy, across those 4.
Exactly. And inevitably, you'll find spots you're neglecting. So the immediate action item is draft one clear, tangible step to expand your reach into a new sphere within, say, the next 90 days. Purposefully gut outside your usual comfortable zone.
Okay, stretch goal. What's next?
Next is the multiplication manifesto exercise. This is about anchoring the culture. Leaders are tasked with writing a short commitment like 3 to 5 sentences that clearly states the organization's dedication to reproduction.
And the Q rule.
The key rule is it must emphasize people and their potential over programs and institutional comfort.
So it sets that internal expectation loud and clear. We're here to grow people who grow others, not just to run slick events.
Absolutely. Then we need to think longer term. The generational view. The source material actually encourages you to physically map out the line of mentorship and discipleship in your organization.
You mean who taught whom?
Yeah. Can you trace it? Are you only teaching the first generation of people who walk in the door?
Because the ultimate goal, the real measure of maturity here, is aiming for 4th generation multiplication. That pattern of equipping people who equip others, who then equip others.
Right. If I teach you, that's generation 1, and you teach 2 others Gen 2, and they each teach others Gen 3, and they teach others Gen 4, that's exponential. But if your structure kind of stops at generation 2, if your leaders aren't actively training people who can then train others, you're just doing addition, simple addition, not multiplication. You're building dependence on the founder or the current leaders.
Keeps it centralized. Okay, one last area, the ecosystem, networking. The source asks a pretty pointed question here. What if competition between mission-focused organizations is actually the biggest roadblock to overall kingdom expansion?
It's a provocative thought. When organizations doing similar work compete for the same talent, the same funding, the same recognition, they just waste energy. They shrink the potential impact for everyone.
Instead of growing the pie together.
Exactly. If the real goal is multiplying the mission, not just making your brand successful, then isolation doesn't make sense. So the actionable step here is thinking about establishing a leaders table, a forum for sharing learnings, maybe pooling resources, collaborating strategically, moving from my territory to our collective mission.
This has been, wow, an incredibly dense and strategic deep dive, really shifting perspective from preserving the organization to genuinely reproducing the mission.
Yeah, and the final synthesis, the core takeaway for you listening, really involves adopting 2 fundamental mindset shifts. First, move from just tracking activity to truly tracking transformation. And second, you have to be almost ruthless in dismantling systems built purely for retention and intentionally replace them with systems designed for reproduction.
For sending. It's about defining success differently, isn't it? Not by what you hold on to, what you control, but by what you intentionally release, what you send out.
Precisely.
So we'll leave you with that concluding provocation from the source material. A thought for you to really chew on as you think about restructuring your own goals. What if legacy isn't really about what you leave behind, but what you send ahead?